I didn't like boundaries. I didn't like my mom's boundaries. I didn't like my school's boundaries. I didn't like anybody's boundaries. 15, I ended up sneaking out the window. I had sex in the back of a car. At 16, I had my first taste of alcohol, and of course I enjoyed it. So I started going to concerts and clubs, and at 24, I was assistant manager at Lady Foot Locker, and my manager asked me what was a good way to lose weight. And just jokingly, I said, do some drugs, do some cocaine. And the next day, and she was smoking meth on tinfoil in the back room. And the next thing you know, I tried it. I asked her if I could try it, and she let me. The minute that I tried it, I liked it, I enjoyed it. I brought it home to my now husband, but we were just getting deeper and deeper and deeper into it. I definitely wasn't living for him. Hi, my name is Pam, and this is my story. My story begins as an adolescence. I went to church pretty much my whole life. At 11, I was saved at a church camp in Hallsville. But from that point, it seems like I ran from God in every boundary that I could. I didn't like boundaries. I didn't like my mom's boundaries. I didn't like my school's boundaries. I didn't like anybody's boundaries. My mom once said that if God came down on earth, I would argue with him. And I used to think that that was a compliment, like I would argue with God himself. And I used to think that that was a compliment. Even though I was saved, I didn't know how to live for him. I was going to church, I was going to youth group, but I continued kind of living the world and doing my thing. And so 15, I ended up sneaking out the window. I had sex in the back of a car, kind of a typical sometimes for 15. Of course, my mom found out. It had destroyed her because they raised me no sex until marriage. And of course, it hurt me that she knew, and it hurt her that I'd done something like that. So it wasn't necessarily I led that path, but that's kind of started it at 15. At 16, I had my first taste of alcohol, and of course I enjoyed it. So I started going to concerts and clubs, and my friend group started being those that drank and started being those that hung out on the weekends and partied. And so that started the trajectory of kind of that lifestyle of just pushing God to the side. I kind of quit going to youth group at that point. I kind of quit anything with God. I knew he was there, but I definitely wasn't living for him. So I got involved in retail, and I met my husband, that's my husband now, at 16. He was at Taco Bell. He pulled up at Taco Bell and it's like, do you know me? And I didn't know him at the time, but from that point on, from 16, we started partying together. So he was part of my partying friends and my partying experience from 16 on. And so when I got out of college at 18 and came back home, he got out of the Marines. And so we started dating at 19. A few years into it, he'd asked me to marry him, and I think we were engaged. I'm not sure if this was before, but I got pregnant. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life yet. I wasn't sure. Abortion was still legal. It never something entered my mind that I would or wouldn't do it. And so at 19, I chose to have an abortion. Nobody stopped me, nobody talked to me about it, nor did I go to talk to anybody else about it. I just made my mind up, and I went and had an abortion. And at that point, something changed in me, something died in me that from that point, my moral compass was completely off. At 24, I was assistant manager at Lady Foot Locker, and my manager asked me what was a good way to lose weight. And just jokingly, I said, do some drugs, do some cocaine. At that point in my life, I was 24, I'd never done drugs. The most I'd ever done was drink. And maybe a little pot every once in a while, but no. The most I ever did was drink. And at 24, I walked in the next day and she was smoking meth on tinfoil in the back room between two rolls of shoes. She was smoking meth on tinfoil. And I asked her, I said, what are you doing? And she told me, I guess I'm smoking meth. And I had a really just outgoing personality and a really just, I'm down for anything kind of personality. And the next thing you know, I tried it. I asked her if I could try it, and she let me. The minute that I tried it, I liked it, I enjoyed it. I brought it home to my now husband, who I met at 16. I brought it home to him, and he tried it, and he liked it, and we just dove in. We dove into it. We dove in. I mean, we went the whole route. You know, at first we were maintaining, we were what you would consider, it looked like fun to everybody else, but we were just getting deeper and deeper and deeper into it. Eventually, I almost OD'd. Blood was coming out my nose. They had to resuscitate me 3 times in the back of the ambulance to get me to come back. The doctor said I had so much drugs in my system, he'd never seen anybody that survived something like that. And so I tried to quit for a minute, but I didn't. Ended up going to prison 2 times. I got a drug charge and ended up never could stay clean when I went to probation. I just went and did a year and got out, and wish I could tell you that it had done something different to me, but got right back into it. My husband got shot in the back with a sawed-off shotgun for a dope deal that had gone bad. Witnessing that was something that changed me forever. Just that lifestyle. So for 10 years, we lived that lifestyle. And then I honestly thought at that point I was probably going to go out like that. But I found out at 35 I was pregnant, and I decided that I was going to have this baby, that God gave me a second chance. We ended up getting married. We ended up turning our life completely around. I never looked back. I remember in prison, the times that I were in prison was the times that I grew close to God. They'll talk about jailhouse religion. Always people would ask me why I was so happy in jail, and it's because everything else falls off, and He has the time to actually talk to you and save you. And so every time I would go, I'd get into Him more, and I'd start to understand. I started to understand the Holy Spirit. I started to see people move in it. I started to know. So by the time I was pregnant, and by the time I knew this was God's last chance for me, I mean, I audibly heard Him tell me, "This is your last chance." And so I had her on March 14th, 2007, and I've never looked back. I'm over 17 years clean. God had restored so much to me. I ended up going back to school. I was on probation, so I was on probation coming out of the charge with her. So I had 5 years probation as she was growing up, and my probation officer told me, she said, "Why don't you fill out for FAFSA and see if you could go to school?" And so I filled out for FAFSA, and I thought, well, maybe I'll be an X-ray tech, or maybe I'll do this or something with my life. You know, maybe there is a hope for my life. And so I called a few places, and a few places said, "We won't hire anybody with a felony." And so I was a little discouraged, and I thought, you know what? I'll put my past with my education. And I started out at Hill College, a junior college, and got a drug and alcohol counseling degree. And as I was doing my practicum for them, somebody suggested that I continue my education and go on for social work. I've raised my beautiful daughter. I've been involved in so many school events. I've been involved in the community. God worked it, so He opened doors for me. I am the development director at the Cleburne Pregnancy Center. And the Cleburne Pregnancy Center is a place that girls can come to when they're pregnant, and they can talk about options as life or adoption or something that somebody gets to sit down and be that sounding board. So God has taken my past and He's put it in front of me and has let me be a sounding board. And one of the first questions I'll normally ask if somebody's abortion-minded is, where does that line up with your values? I want them to be able to talk and hear themselves think and be that support system to say, you can do it, because I really think if somebody would have done that for me, I really don't think I would have had an abortion. I really think that I could have realized I would be okay. God is a God of restoration. I can't say that enough. There's a verse that says God will restore what the locusts have taken. And I have stood on that verse, and I've seen it true time and time again that He has restored what the locust has taken. A quote I saw on Facebook really hit home for me. You're one decision away from a totally different life.